Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge NewsCon. I'm Chris Matthew. I want to welcome Karen Holton. She is a social justice activist and judge for Natural and Common Law Tribunal for Public Health and Justice. She is also an ET experiencer, educator, channel guide, and ascension coach. Her professional experiences include coaching, counseling, and public speaking. Karen, how are you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing very good.
Good.
It's a conference is going great so far. I'm gonna be nice and worn out by the end, but that's okay.
You sure will.
Looking forward to your presentation. Love, sex, and politics in outer space. I
Yeah.
mean, the name pretty much says it all. But we're looking forward to getting into this and seeing what this has to offer. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my camera off and turn this over to you, ladies and gentlemen, Karen Holton.
Okay, I'm just going to go to screen share. Okay, just give me a second to move this bar out of the way. There we go. Okay, yes, today's talk is called Love, Sex, and Politics in Outer Space. It's based on my own real life paranormal experiences. Just going to make this a little bit bigger so everybody can see it. Move me out of the way. There we go. Okay, so as an introduction, at Forbidden Knowledge News Con last year, I introduced you to an overview of the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. This year, I'm putting my experiences and a lot more detail into my first book, which I hope to publish soon. It is my hope that this information will comfort those with similar experiences and inspire others to open their minds to alternative realities which benefit humankind. Welcome to the second annual Forbidden Knowledge News Conference. This year, I speak to love, sex, and politics in outer space, how E.T. love, sex, and politics intersect to form stable timelines in outer space. But first, a little bit of background information for those of you who may be new to my experiences. In 2017, my spiritual guides told me that it was time to come out of the closet and make public my ET experiences and the knowledge I received as a result. My goal is not to convince anyone about my truth, but rather to educate those who are open to this information and to inspire others who may also share similar experiences to come out and declare their truths. My memories have spontaneously unfolded without hypnosis or regression therapy. They emerged slowly as I became more public with my experiences, but I do not have full recall. I just remember what I remember. And I did not learn about this phenomena from anybody else's work, research, or books. I only know my own experience. Since I was in contact with various beings from other realities, I felt it was important to not do research about others who made similar claims. I wanted my experiences to be pure and not influenced by the observations of others. After I went public through social media in 2019, I started to compare notes with others, and then I was surprised by the similarities in our experiences that we reported. It is important to note that I do not represent the beings from the Intergalactic Resettlement Program in any way, and I am not their spokesperson. I only speak to what I know and experience for myself. Many of us have these encounters, but most people do not remember. Further, I do not have human language for all of my adventures, but have chosen best as I can to relate my experiences, concepts, etc., in common English. I've been encouraged by my spiritual guides to provide information so that people can make up their own minds about the options they may choose from for dealing with future world events. The Intergalactic Resettlement Program may become an option when our physical planet is in crisis or transitioning, making it not safe to live here anymore. With all the exopolitical contact that we hear about, it is important for you to know that I am not part of any earth-based group, religion, politic, or philosophy, and I am not part of the secret space program. I wish to stress that there's nothing to be afraid of. These off-world beings are absolutely benevolent and loving. They have a do no harm mandate and do not interfere with human free will. They may become involved in our lives when we ask for help and prove that we are serious by altering our lifestyle and thinking so that we can hold sufficient frequency for contact. When the student is ready, the master appears. Depending on how ready we are, how open-minded we are, etc., then appropriate contact can begin. It all starts with us, and when we are ready to initiate the contact. Further, I do not know species or racial names, planet names, or group names, and my ET friends are not from any specific star system. This is an unorganized, frequency-based movement. When we are ready and reach out spiritually, contact commences. On Earth, there are millions of us who share in the galactic and intergalactic work, and I was delighted to find out that I am not alone and that my experiences are not unique. Not everyone has the same encounters, and we tell our stories many different ways, but I see this as complementary rather than competitive. The galaxy is mind-blowingly humongous and diverse, so there's room for all of our experiences and more. It is the policy of this ET group to suppress our memories when we return to our everyday lives, so that we can remain embedded into the Earth social-political construct for soul development. This is for our own protection because even today, many humans have their rights violated as they are diagnosed with mental illness labels when they go public with their ET experiences. This is why our memories are suppressed before returning to life here on Earth. It is important to note that this process is not some kind of mental rape. We agree to forget, and we cooperate with one or two off-world beings who help us to bury our memories deep. The memories are there, but we cannot access them until we experience a trigger of sorts. Sometimes we suddenly access a small amount of memory, and other times we remember quite a lot. Meditation and hypnotherapy can help. So here's just a little bit of background information of my history for those of you who are not familiar with my experiences. Let me share some of my history with you. I am always connected to my spiritual guides even today. I work for Archangel Gabriel from December 21st to March 21st each year, fulfilling missions and completing exercises for soul development. In addition, my paranormal contact with other beings includes off-world contact with E.T. and much more. Back in 2010, I started to experience E.T. contact for the second time. You can learn more about my previous involvement from watching the replay from last year's conference or from my many podcasts. It is important to note that the feelings of intense love that I received from my ET friends indicated that these beings were good. I just knew that contact agreed with my pre-birth life agreements that I had set up before I was born. I also believe that I have extensive contact with these beings beyond my 3D body, which means that my higher self makes contact with and without my conscious awareness. Lucid dreams with remote viewing are a regular feature of my contact experience. Sometimes I get spontaneous knowing and spiritual downloads. It takes seconds to receive a download, but it takes time to unwrap and synthesize the data. For example, I received the basic concept for the Quantum Health Transformation Program in an instant, but it took me nearly 2 years to unpack or downstep the concepts and create the course materials. In 2012, I received the call to level up and notice Earth changes, which I sure did, physical, political, and spiritual. In 2013, I received a major spiritual download and began using the Nubby Ball tool. And then in 2014, I received the rest of the Quantum Health Transformation Program. In 2015, I became aware of some ongoing exopolitical ambassador work that I was doing. I did not travel there physically. I remained in my bed, sleeping, but my consciousness was definitely transported to the big ship each night. Physical presence is not needed to do the exopolitical ambassador work. At first, it was unsettling to wake up in the middle of the night to use the washroom, while I was also aware of being present at the meetings on board the big ship. Although it bothered me at first, my E.T. associates didn't seem to mind at all. It is important for me to mention that there is a time differential between Earth time and intergalactic time. I was taken every night for about 3 months Earth time, but I experienced it for more like 3 years. Time is different there, and they are not bound by rotation around a sun, giving 24 hours to a day. Then there are times when I am also outside of my physical existence, where time and distance do not exist. So it makes sense that I was returned before waking up in the morning, even though I experienced being gone for weeks. I have no physical proof of my off-world adventures, but I do have some very vivid memories, and I have learned a lot. I also have the 9 steps to quantum health transformation. The original and Series 2.0 are now available for free from my website and other social media platforms. After this, I began to do more research and found out about Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 movement back in 2015. And I was greatly encouraged by Paul Hellyer and the Disclosure Conference, which I found out about the same time. As a result, I started to meditate and reach out for more contact. I discovered that I am an energetic wide receiver, and my contacts include interdimensionals, E.T.s, angels, and even more. I can tap into whatever group or being has a job for me to do in order to help correct our timeline and help to establish the new positive timeline. Further, I am not tied to any one specific off-world group or race. I'm available to help out as needed by various groups and beings from many interdimensional realities. Basically, I work for Holy Spirit, which is also known as universal consciousness. If we wish to take part in full contact, we must prepare ourselves to hold the higher dimensional frequencies. I believe that our health, psychology, and spirituality must be upskilled and evolved in order to do this. More about how to make contact in my soon-to-be published book. So now let's delve into the Intergalactic Resettlement Program. Just for clarification, my context is not nuts and bolts, and it's not religious. It's sociological, cultural, and spiritual. There is an E.T. group, a federation of planets, that deals with our world leaders, but the beings that I know have no affiliation with that group. The ancestors of my E.T. friends started out as a rogue breakaway group who knew that negotiating with world leaders of dystopian planets rarely benefit the private citizens. So they developed an energy system. It's spiritual. This is an ongoing human and human-like initiated program, CE5. In addition, the Intergalactic Resettlement Program is not part of the Secret Space Program, and this is only one of many possible resettlement options that are facilitated by uncountable ET groups. The ET members of this group are unnamed in human terms, and they don't speak English. There are many different ET groups, and as far as I know, my group is not formally affiliated with any other group. Ship politics are anarchist and autonomous or sovereign in nature, and intergalactic resettlement has been around for thousands of our years, assisting many evolved beings who face extinction-level events. This program is not specific to Earth. These beings also offer those of us who are ready a training program involving scientific expeditions to planets that will eventually be resettled. The planets that we visit have everything established in perfect balance, except for humanoids. More details about this in my upcoming book. Now, let me be clear. E.T. is not here to rescue us or solve our problems. They are waiting for us to solve our own problems, come into power personally and collectively, and begin a new way to manage here on Earth. We will eventually stand up for our personal and collective sovereignty and reject 3D constructs. Evolving Earth people are welcome to make contact when they feel ready. Motivated by love and compassion, these beings make themselves available to provide extraction for near extinction or extinction level events. Planets are not the safest places to live. Natural extinction cycles are common, and in our case, this is the 5th reseeding, which means repopulation with humanoids, of Earth. If we are faced with an extinction level event, some of us may be taken, and if so, we may be able to take our loved ones with us if they wish to go. Further, we can also personally participate in resettlement should we as a collective not come into our power and make the changes necessary to create heaven on earth. Those who take responsibility for their own evolution will be offered a chance to resettle because they have skills and ways of being that will not cause harm and bring value to resettlement. In addition, most people who have contact experiences similar to mine don't remember, but we are remembering more now. The call has been put out there and many are recovering memory of their experiences in order to encourage and educate the people of Earth in these critical times. We can develop our own psychic skills and call in our guides, angels, and other truth providers for assistance. And eventually we must learn to do this. We can make contact and connect once we are able to hold sufficient frequency. This process is often called leveling up, ascension, and evolution, but these terms all mean basically the same thing. So you might be wondering, what are their basic programs and what is the purpose? Well, aboard the big ship, they offer a pre-settlement program, a resettlement program, and immigration to space life aboard city ships. There are also exopolitical ambassadorship positions, which may include downloading your Earth experiences into their data bank system. As an exopolitical ambassador, I also give reports and input from the human perspective. They value my perspective and indeed all perspectives from humans. This is why there are so many of us who experience galactic and intergalactic contact. And as previously mentioned, these programs have been going on for literally thousands of years. Disasters that destroy humanoid populations, which could be man-made, ET initiated, and even natural, can include diseases, planetary changes, planetary evolution, culling by some ET races, and or the re-terraforming of the planet. My group of beings are not involved in any of these intrusive processes. When a planet has been re-terraformed after some time, it has everything we would expect to see on a healthy planet, including the animals, bugs, birds, fish, plants, oceans, forests, etc., in perfect balance. But there are no humanoids. Everything is there for optimal success: food, plant medicines, and opportunities for education. As I mentioned, in the past, Earth was seeded several times by intergalactic resettlement programs, and in the case of what I have seen, there is no evidence of colonialism. Off-world resettlement results are very different than human resettlement endeavors as historically seen here on Earth. Sometimes humanoids are created and placed on worlds as intergalactic genetic experiments, but more often, and as my experience shows, beings start over and resettle because they want to. Sometimes their planets become inhospitable, or a social experiment needs a place to unfold, or something where the humanoids are already highly evolved and choose to be relocated. Before a planet is repopulated by humanoids, scientific expeditions are carefully planned and managed. Temporary settlements are set up for diagnostic and training purposes, requiring hands-on physical experience. Before we arrive, a quarantine area is set up around the camp and training area to protect the ecosystems and maintain the balance and integrity of the biosphere. I did not personally interact with any wild animal species while participating in this work. I felt like I was very physical during these excursions. I didn't feel like I was disembodied or astral traveling or remote viewing. I have also had contact while doing the ambassador work where I did not feel like I was in my body. But this was really a physical experience with eating foods and doing work. The planets we explored had everything needed for life and all kinds of life as we would expect, except no humanoids yet. Our mission involved finding the very best way to resettle without disrupting the harmony of the biosphere. While on the planets, we live very simply. Each group takes turns designing and putting up the habitat, small huts, cabins, and sometimes tents that we shared. Everything we used was very plain and utilitarian. Dwellings were made from the natural materials we found in the area, or tents that we brought with us. As mentioned before, we keep ourselves isolated from the animals. Later, when we were back on the big ship, the data that we collected was integrated into a holographic representation, and we used it to learn more about how the biological systems on the planet were interconnected and interdependent. So for those of you that are new to my work, I'm sure you're wondering, what is E.T. like? These beings are just ahead of humans in their evolutionary process. They are at our next stage of development. They look a lot like us, but are healthier, smarter, better adjusted emotionally, braver, and very spiritual, but not that far ahead of us. Also, they are in every way more technologically advanced. Most are taller than the average human, but some are not. These are our brothers and sisters and cousins. They look very much like the human diversity we see on Earth. Intergalactically, we are all members of the same species, just different family lines or races. For example, all people born on Earth here are of the human race. One big difference from us is that they live much longer. In Earth terms, at least 500 years, but they can live for a lot longer. Basically, they just live for as long as they want to. And then when they get to the point where they've done it all and they've had it, pretty much whatever they want to do or whatever they want to explore or however they want to be, and when they're done with it, it's time to pass over. And it's not a sad time like here on Earth. Although I experience them in great diversity, all of these beings breathe oxygenated air, eat food, sleep, but all have slightly different requirements. The exception are the aquatics, which I only saw once on one mission aboard the big ship. Aquatics are not actually aquatics because the fluid environment that they live in has the same oxygen content as our air, and it's not H2O. Many gas-breathing humanoids, like humans, can actually live for short periods of time in their liquid environment because our lungs can also act as gills. What I call the aquatics are tall beings with very smooth skin like our aquatic mammals. They have slit-shaped nostrils on their faces instead of protruding noses, and gill vents behind both small ears. These beings are very handsome and attractive. They are bald and they're slight of build. Their feet are flatter than ours. They have webbed toes and fingers, and they use their feet and lower legs for general propulsion. They don't walk. By using both arms and legs in a synchronized motion, they are able to swim very quickly. They wore no clothes, and I found it difficult to distinguish gender because they have internal genitalia. There were also short beings with beards who were barely 5 feet tall. These ones do everything together, love to maintain physical contact with each other, and remain very close and intimate. The females have an obvious bust, more facial hair than the males, and they both reminded me of characters from a book by Dr. Seuss because of their bright red spiky hair. I got to know one couple because they took a liking to me, and they sort of adopted me, into their fictitious family. I love their comical faces, their warm affection, and the way that they would reach out and gently touch me as we shared time together. They are so gentle and loving. Some other races look very much like us, but have variegated pigment on their bodies and wear clothing that exposes their various blotches and spots. They can craftily rearrange their pigment for private or distant communication. These unique pigment constellations allow them to communicate much the same way as American Sign Language allows deaf people to communicate from across a crowded room. They, like most beings that I encountered, were what we would consider to be fit and beautiful. Some with long, flowing, wavy hair, long arms and legs with very fit torsos. It was a chore not to stare at them rudely. All of these beings tend to live in close-knit family groups who spend a lot of time with their children. I found much diversity because most of these beings are of mixed race, and their ancestors came from numerous star clusters and galaxies. In many cases, this mixing has been going on for thousands of years. They have no concept for racism, and all love and reproduction are celebrated. Skin tone variations include all tones and shades of brown, off-white, pale blues, and even orange. Some beings can cloak their appearance in a similar way as chameleons or octopods do here on Earth. Oops. They prefer to wear bright clothing and rich colored printed fabrics for clothing. And you can always see a hint of the same pattern on their skin. These are very playful beings with a tradition of complex games similar to hide and seek. Since we all communicate telepathically, we always know when they are present, and besides, their bright choices of clothing also make them quite visible. Some beings are physically shorter, but most beings were taller than us with larger frames. Some beings have more hair and others not so much hair. Some, like the aquatics, were completely bald from head to toe. To add to the diversity, all beings have their own preferred choices of hair, grooming style, and fashion. I have to tell you about the angelics, who look like perfect, beautiful, godlike beings to me, with large muscular frames and long flowing white hair. They are among the palest of the beings that I met. There were only a few that I saw, but they seemed to keep to themselves socially. Since we all communicate telepathically, I could not hide my fascination with them. And although I stared rudely, they were very patient with me and did not make an issue of it. I guess it was obvious that I meant them no harm. All of the beings that I saw look very much like us, and as I mentioned earlier, they are our slightly more evolved brothers and sisters. Some are androgynous looking and others more obviously gendered. Some prefer more clothing and others less. Even within groups who share similar appearance, and there's great diversity, there is still great diversity of personality, temperament, talent, and even preferences. I want you to know that there is nothing to be afraid of. Earth people are more cruel and without a moral compass than our E.T. brothers and sisters. Also, these are not the only beings out there, I have been told. This is the tip of the intergalactic community. Sometimes visiting E.T.s are present physically via bilocation, but other times they use clones for the transfer of their consciousness when they as experiencers require physicality. There are 3 kinds of clones. There's the generic one-size-fits-all, the genetic copy, and the utilitarian. And I'll speak more about those later on in this presentation. You can imagine my amusement when I realized that to my friends on the big ship, I am also E.T., so I wear the label with pride.